Hey, two-part video today because actually what I'm going to end up doing is showing you the setup I'm using to kind of check my top cage tube work. I'm going to show you how I'm setting that up, and then I'm actually going to go and weld a bunch of stuff and come back and finish the video after I've got some parts attached. Okay, so that's kind of where this is going to go. So you'll see a split in the middle. That's why I'm not just going to leave the camera running the whole time I'm doing welding. So let's get started on the top of the cage. This is there's a whole bunch of important setup stuff I want to talk about. I remember saying earlier when I was welding on some of these little tabs that just hold the body on and stuff. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So down in the back here, I was talking about these little half washers that I put in here, and all they do is just hold the body in position. Well, this is the time in the project where these half washers are going to be replaced with something more permanent. And what that actually is these little scalar fab tabs, they're called. They have a hole in them there. I just threaded them, put a screw in it, screwed the screw into my dented tube. This is all stuff we've talked about in previous videos. But that's going to be now the body seat, that little step right there. Because these actually fit down into the body. This is the one of the back bars, and you see how that little tab just sits underneath the body right there. See that? And then it's going to get welded onto this back tube right here, down in there where the body is actually going to sit onto that bar. Right there, kind of see it there. So, why am I telling you all that? Because what's going to happen now is the way that this gets welded together is going to change. For now, I've been using the brass. I've been doing a bunch of brazing using brass to do these joints and these attachment places and stuff like that. But that's got to change now, because now I'm into the spots where I'm going to actually be doing multiple joints in one position. So let's just assume that I'm going to put this tube right in here. Okay, let me see if I can hold this in position. So something just like this is how that tube is going to go. And this joint up top here, I'm actually going to have to weld this with the wire, with the MIG, with electric welding. Okay, and the reason for that is because the next bar that goes across the top here and the cross work that goes in between, those are going to be done with brass, and this joint can't come apart. So I have to weld this together. The first joint has to be done with a weld that is a higher temperature than the second weld. The second weld is going to have to be a higher temperature than the third weld. And the reason for all that stepping the temperatures is because you don't want them to come apart in the process. Okay, so what I'm going to do is when I solder this tab on the back here, this tab I can do with brass because it's only going to be one thing happening right there. And then that brass will be in position. That will locate this top bar, and the bottom of the top bar, you'll see right in here, this bottom of the top bar is actually a single tube that comes all the way down, and it bends forward just slightly to match up with this tube, and it still allows me to have a screw hole right here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, so you see how this is done. So this top bar comes down like this, and then it bends over just slightly so that it will match up to that crosser at the bottom right here. And I still have room for my screw tab if I decide to use it. Okay, so that's how they're done, and they're taped on in position. Go back out. These are taped on in position. They sit where I want them to sit here. I will be able to put a little magnet tab on here for the opening and closing door. If I turn this, you can have a look at the front as well. So the front bar here is exactly the same thing. I kind of taped it on in position, and at the bottom here, if I turn this slightly, then you'll be able to see down in the bottom here. And the way that the bottom is attached is the same kind of thing. So I've got this useless crosser bar that goes across here I'm going to have to cut out anyways. We talked about that earlier. But I'm using it to hold everything in position, and that includes this bottom tube mount, which is also bent just slightly so I can get around the screw hole. Alright, now you'll see here I've already had to actually weld in here a couple of times, and that's because tube work is a lot of work, and I actually had the height of the tubes wrong. I don't have a roof or anything to gauge this by, so I had to get Francois from the Tank RC to measure his truck for me so I could find out what total height I needed. And I've had to lower these tubes, and then I was able to put a board in here and actually see how high it was all going to be. So I'm in a good spot right now. I'm going to put in these rear crossers. These ones here will go on the back of the bumper, and then they will attach in here. They will be sort of captured in the body by a little dent in the plastic right here that I'll put in the back lip. So the body will locate on these, and once these are all in, I should have a pretty solid cage work, basic cage work ready. And then once I've got done with these two top tubes, and I'm done with these two back mounts that go here, I should be able to actually just get on it big time, if you know what I mean, because at that point I will have so much structure here that won't move that I can put in all the X work and the door handle and the grab handles and all that other stuff in top. Okay, so that's kind of where this is going. I'm going to weld all this up here now, and then we'll come back to the video in a couple seconds for you, but it'll be probably a couple hours for me. And we'll get some of this pictured up here when it's actually got some other tube and welding into it. Be right back. And there's the time-lapse from Welding. That was pretty cool, actually. I kind of like that new app. I forget what it's actually called, but I use it on my phone. And you can set the different speeds on it, so it will take snapshots of your work, whatever it is that you're doing, over a course of time. That was on the extra fast setting, so it actually took me quite a long time to get that set up and welded and put together, but then you get to see it in a few seconds, so I think that's really cool. Here's how this went down. At the end of the day, we actually now have a cage. So the front cage I still have just taped on there. I want to make sure that everything's squared up. But now we actually have a rear cage. And what I've done here, as described earlier, is that underneath here, these are actually a electric welding right here. These two are an electric weld right here, and the reason for that is because when I put the tube on the top, this is all going to be brazed, and so I know that these crossbars here going down at the back, these ones will stay forever in place because the welding can't move. So that's the reason. Also did the same thing down in here. So these bottom tubes here where the back seat rail comes down into the tube work, that is also electric welded. That's MIG. The reason for that is I wanted to not put any heat into the side joint that's already there. There's a, well, let me get rid of the body. Just a second. Yeah, so basically I'll just pull this tape off of here that's holding this front tube in. Or I don't think I have to, actually. So you can see here that there's a joint already here that I did with brass, right? You remember from this crossbar from way back at the beginning. There's brass here, 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 and here. and because of that I didn't want to have to heat this up enough to melt the brass. So if I do the electric on these joints right here, it's so fast. I mean, you probably got that notion from the time-lapse video, but it's just like you're done. So there's a couple there, and then we did electric here on the inside of the top of the hoop. And what's really cool now is that I've got this carryable, you know, solid mounted cage. The way that these ones worked at the back here, let me see if I can macro in here. There we go. So you can see there's a screw tab there. The screw is really just holding that on. The screw was only just holding that on because it's now completely brazed right over. Let me get the focus here. So it's brazed right on. The tab is brazed on the bottom, leveled off with the bottom of the tube work here. And then it's got this little step inside in between the two pieces, which is where the body sits, the same way we had it before. But you'll notice that I've taken off these two little temporary washers that I had on here that were doing the body support, so they're gone. That's pretty cool. I'm really happy with how this is going, and the really good news is that now we can pretty much take the body off and on demand with very little work. The front just sits down inside there, and then we have this nice solid top cage work. That will translate into some more stuff up top. What I'm going to do now is basically spend the next, I don't know, a couple of videos probably just dealing with the top of this, trying to get the cross rails in here to the dashboard. I want to make sure that I've got a good looking cage, so I'm going to snoop around on Google Images and stuff and try to find how I want to do this. One of the other things that I do want to incorporate in the back here is my spare tire mount. I have to get some kind of a tube mount at the back here to get rid of this cheesy setup piece that I have in. I got to get rid of that. So in the process of doing that, I think I'll build the spare tire mount. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it this way. I could do it on a fender. I'm not really sure yet. So this is almost the same size as my Rock Beast. That's a Twin Hammers factory tire, so that will be in there somewhere as my gauge before I get my full spare. And we're on our way. So thanks for watching. More tube coming up, and we're getting pretty close actually to getting the driveline into it, and then having to get the floor pan and the tunnel and stuff done so we can get rid of those temporary tubes. We'll see how that goes. Chat soon.